Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamualaikum. Ji ayanum pakhair agale ni hao chunashumme washwale. Ohio gozaima's guten morgen. Hola, bonjour, privyet, kaifa hal? Halishuma chatore, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaba. Buna mucho gracias, swabia balli kare aya. Hoş geldin anayo sayo khuya mora chivato chi haljot kali mera khairotan. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning on a very fine sunny Thursday morning over here in Islamabad. The weather looks like as if it's changing, but before I speak any further, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really happy that I've been joined by my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Haja Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody out there is doing wonderfully well and that you're ready to kickstart your day with us. But first things first, hello Haja, assalamu alaikum. How was your commute to work today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. It was alhamdulillah very smooth commute towards the work, and I really enjoyed driving towards my workplace today. And like you said, the weather is transitioning. We are finally feeling the beautiful
it's
weather
in the air
of
now.
The fall of the Islamabad, and especially the autumn season that sets in. And I mean, the weather continues to confuse us because early in the morning it's very cold, and then in the noon it's like very hot. You know,
36
you need to,
degrees.
Yes, and then in the evening and in the night, you know, it's cold, and it's a beautiful sort of a transition. But this is the changing seasonalities of the nature, and this is the beauty. There is inherent beauty in observing these weather patterns, in these weather changes. But Shahzad, we've also talked about a very interesting news that we came across, and that is how the scientists are able to recover some of the dreams that we have. And that's a very interesting development, because considering the fact that I never remembered my entire dream. I do remember some portion of it, maybe the starting, maybe, you know, the middle aspect of it. But I never really know that how it ended. But I just know that there was some sort of reel that is being played in my brain, and when I wake up, so it's more of like, you know, a very interesting sort of an area. But I mean, the way science and technology is going on, you never know how things roll out, right?
You know, imagine that scientists have actually created a device. You know, it's a unique device which can actually record human dreams, ladies and gentlemen. And while we are at it, while we're talking about dreams, I think what we really need to kind of talk about is the kind of dreams that we you know, do we see dreams? Do we visualize dreams? You know, it's like hard to put it in context, right?
True, and the image being able to watch your dream as if they are a film, experiencing the events that unfold while you sleep. So Japanese researchers have developed a device capable of recording and playing back dreams. And this innovative technology utilizes advancements in brain imaging and artificial intelligence to unlock the mysterious realm of dreams. The study was conducted at the ATR Computational Neuroscience Laboratories in Kyoto, led by Professor Kamitani. The team employed functional magnetic resonance imaging to record detailed neural activity associated with dreaming. Volunteers' cognitive activity was observed during the early stages of the sleep, and when they enter the REM sleep, they were awakened and questioned about their dreams. And by analyzing the brain scans and crafting a detailed database of images linked to specific brain patterns, scientists achieved a 60% accuracy in predicting the dream content. You know, that's very surprising. It's also very scary, but at the same time, very, very interesting development.
Imagine, so they're calling these machines the dream reading machines. You know, it looks more like an MRI machine to me as well. So we are certainly not sure as if it's like a playback thing or whether it's visualization of the brain or the brain activity. But now it totally depends whether you would want to be a part of that machine or not, because now not every time that we get like good dreams, you know, sometimes it's nightmares as well. So we really do not want to record them. But for people who miss their loved ones who are not around, you know, to kind of get that feeling and essence while you have a machine which can read your dream, I think it will be beautiful. I think I get my Nana most of the time in my dreams, my Chachu and everybody. I think it's just going to be lovely.
They passed away?
Yeah, they passed away. And, you know, for everybody who's actually listening to us today or watching us, please make sure that you pray for all of those people who've departed from this you know, finite world. And yeah, I think it's a great development. People will take great advantage of it as well. Yaar, wo mujhe khwab aaya tha. Let me look at it. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, yeah, ye khwab aaya tha.
And speaking of unearthing some very mysterious artifacts and objects, so there is another very interesting development which happened that 32,400 years old woolly rhino mummy was unearthed in Asia. Oh, that's quite a development. And preserved in permafrost, the ancient creature has provided a valuable insights in the extant species. A remarkably well-preserved woolly rhinoceros was discovered near the river in the Russia Sakha Republic. The frozen carcass dates back to 32,400 years. A team of researchers led by the Gannady has also analyzed the remains, and the ancient creature named the Abiski rhinoceros has provided scientists with a unique window into the past, even though it is over 32,000 years old. Many parts of the rhino's soft tissue, skins and wool were found intact in the sub-zero permafrost. And I think that's a very amazing development that they were. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. It's magnificent to watch that, you know, what science is doing these days. And there's another news which I would love to share. I think probably let's do it on Monday or, you know, tomorrow as well. So that news actually talks about how there's this company who's actually freezing human bodies, and most of the people have actually signed up for it as well. They will change your or replicate your bodily fluids with something else, and then probably, you know, if you want to wake up in 3020, you know, so.
Oh, you can do that.
I don't know if you can do that or not, but
I don't think so.
So 5 bodies have been frozen by now. You know, I will share the news only when, you know, I have it. So ladies and gentlemen, I don't think that we really need to pay heed to this news for now, because I'm not really sure whether it's apt or not. I read it somewhere, so I'll bring it with some, you know, connections or probably with some authenticity as well. But while we're at it, I think this is something that we touched upon yesterday as well. We want to touch upon it. You know, Hajra actually spoke about climate justice. We have been speaking about how Pakistan is so vulnerable to, you know, all of the climate change which is being taken place. We're not climate change resilient as of now as well. Every now and then we do get floods, and whenever we get floods, you know, it's a havoc over here. $40 billion of infrastructure losses just in a year ago. I think all of these things really need to kind of be discussed. And while we're at it, I think, you know, you mentioned that, you know, COP is arriving as well. We really need to kind of tap onto all of those, you know, funds which are being pledged by the nations that, okay, you know, because we've contributed to climate change, we need to do that. And while we are listening to it, I think what we need to understand is that Pakistan happens to be one of those countries who've only contributed 0.0001%. So I think that we really need to kind of talk about climate justice. We need to talk about climate change and what sort of action really needs to be taken, and the national context of the country.
And I think we also need to talk about the nature-based solutions. And obviously, when we talk about the climate justice, when we talk about the environmental justice, we also need to have this conversation where we need to decarbonize the world economy. So in order to mitigate the effects of the climate change, so in order to make sure that how can we transition towards a renewable energy resources that are more cost effective, that are more efficient, and that also contributes towards the economic well-being of the poor countries, and especially middle to lower income countries. How can we do that and make sure that we balance our economic needs but also maintaining the environmental upgradation? We are very glad that we have been joined by someone who happens to be working very diligently on the renewable energy resources, and he is the CEO of the Alternative Development Services. He happens to be Mr. Amjad Nazir. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you too. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Amjad is also heading a think tank, a research institute, where he's working on the climate justice, on the transition towards the renewable energy resources. These are all very relevant conversation, and in the wake of the climate issues, in the wake of the climate justice, we are watching they are happening. But on the ground, how do you think we can overcome our circular debt and also make sure that we transition towards a more cleaner form of the energy, greener energy?
Yes, your second aspect of your question first, what is clean and green energy? We need to understand it, because most of the energies that we produce now, oil-based energy or coal-based energy, which is not defined as a clean or green energy, skipping the hydro, only small and medium hydros are recommended these days, but rest of the energy that we produced from fossil fuel is not defined as green and clean energy.
Right, right.
So there is a need in Pakistan and across the world. There is a whole movement to introduce green and clean energy.
All right.
So when we say green and clean energy, first we need to understand what the green and clean energy is.
Sure.
Green and clean energy is a kind of energy which is produced from sources that do not emit carbon dioxide, or which are less on greenhouse gas emissions.
Right.
So this is wind and solar, green hydrogen, and to some extent nuclear. It is defined as clean, but then hydel energy is also defined clean and green, with a condition if it is small, because if these are large and huge dams, first they are constructed in Pakistan with international finance or international debt or World Bank funding etc., but secondly they have got some environmental side effects as well.
So this means
Therefore,
while we are,
hydel is also green and clean, but small and medium hydel energy production system is recommended.
So with with context to where we're speaking about clean energy, that means lesser carbon footprint, lesser deforestation,
I just mentioned
lesser
solar
coal
energy.
burning.
Yes.
Yes.
Solar energy, wind energy, and Pakistan has got abundant resources of producing solar energy as well as wind energy.
And now the first part of my colleague's question. Yes.
Yes. I mean, alternatively, therefore, we should switch over our resources or our sources of producing energy from thermal, which is then oil based, and oil we import oil. Therefore, we import oil for billions of dollars every month.
Oh yes.
Which obviously causes circular debt. If we want to bring our circular debt down, definitely need to find our local, indigenous, clean and green resources.
Thank you so much, sir, for saying that, because in addition to this, I think that the world is actually moving on towards that. But imagine that for a country where we might not have suffice of the energy that we require, so it's certainly not us, but obviously we are dependent on that as well. Our circular debt keeps on increasing, the markets keep on fluctuating. But I believe it's really important for us to understand the national and international context of climate change and how Pakistan is actually taking up on it as well. Do you think that that we have government policies in place where we are being promoted to kind of go towards solar? Because earlier it was net metering, now you give 3 units, now you get 1 back only. Green meter is so hard to find. So how is the government actually kind of promoting it that, hey, what, we need to move on towards renewable energy sources?
Well, in fact, there are more than one questions that you asked.
Yep.
First, we are not short of supply. We in fact produce more. I mean, more than our demand.
Really?
Oh, really?
But the problem, yes, definitely. Problem lies between balancing, striking a balance between our generation, transmission and distribution.
All right.
And that is of seasonality and multiple hours of the day.
All right.
Our demand is in winter, our demand is usually from 18,000 to 20,000 megawatt.
Okay.
While in winter, our demand shoots up to 40,000 to 42,000 megawatt.
Right.
We sometimes generate more, but we consume less.
Okay.
Why? There is a difference because in most of the countries, it is the industry that consumes more than 60% or 65% of their energy, and then is the commerce and the industry and agriculture and other sectors. But in our country, it is relatively reverse. It is the domestic energy consumption. It is about 60 to 65% of the energy that we generate is consumed by the household sector.
Yeah.
heating and cooling and lighting.
Because we do not have that much of industry anyways.
Yeah, exactly. Other appliances. No, industry is there, it's growing. I'm not saying it's not there, but the question is that how much and how far we fulfill the needs and demands of the industry.
And
it's mainly the domestic. We need to promote our industry, and industrial energy consumption needs more or less sustains, but our household and commercial sector needs goes up and down according to the season and within different hours of the day, as you just mentioned. In the morning temperature is different, and in the noon it's different, and in the evening it's different.
You mentioned very interesting statistics when talking about our energy mix. So 60 to 65% is the domestic consumption, right? And now world is talking about transitioning towards the renewable energy sources, right? But if we analyze the context of Pakistan, you cannot deny that energy affordability is at the heart of the climate justice, right, or energy justice in the first place. But if you go to the areas which are far flung, especially in Pakistan, for example, mountainous areas, there people are not even using like the gas or the electricity in the first place. What they are doing is they are cutting the trees. I do belong to mountainous areas, and I do know the struggle, especially in the winters when it's it's very harsh snow. People go, and before the winter season set in, they cut out the forest and then they consume that biomass and make sure that it is used in the form of the energy, right? So we are witnessing that those people are still living in environment, in an area that they're not even talking about going towards the energy transition, in the first place. But it's an immense burden on the environment, and we know when we talk about energy affordability, right, it's more affordable to them, right? So when we talk about energy transition, climate justice, energy justice, how can we cater to that portion of the population. For example, people who are residing in Kumrat Valley, right, there is no road accessibility, right, and they are left to the vagaries of, you know, the very harsh climate there, and then they have to fend for themselves. How do you do that?
Yes, I mean, as you just mentioned, Pakistan is a diversified country. Pakistan is diversified geographically, socially and culturally. Therefore, our needs and demands in terms of energy are also diversified and varied.
Okay.
Right.
So, we need to understand the geography and the living style and energy demand and energy needs and preferences of that particular area or the community or the province that we are in. So, back to this this domestic need or domestic demand, we need to introduce energy efficient and energy conserving households.
Yeah.
We need to reintroduce or introduce the new systems of building architectures and household.
True.
So that we can preserve heating,
Yeah.
we preserve the environment within the household and reduce or bring down our household energy consumption needs.
I think that
Then-
yeah, please.
Then coming to multiple sources of energy,
Yes.
in Sindh we have got abundant resources.
Yes.
In Jhampir in particular, we can produce wind energy, and in Balochistan there are wind corridors where we can produce hundreds of thousands of megawatts.
Exactly, because that's exactly what we hear in Karachi के जी बलूचिस्तान की हवाएं आ गई हैं ठंडी तो कराची में ठंड आ गई. I think we always used to hear that. I think sir has actually kind of second that notion as well, that you know we have wind corridors over there. But sir, I think what we really need to kind of talk about over here is that how do you think Pakistan can take steps to conserve energy? I think that's one point that we've really missed out on. You know, in the previous years, nobody speaks about it. There's less awareness on conserving energy. So one, obviously this architecture you've spoken about will help us conserve energy. What can be the other methods? You know, for example, if we were to talk about industry or households.
Yes, with respect to industry, I mean industry gradually they also need to renewable energy sources.
Okay.
I mean let us say green hydrogen is one option which is not viable at the moment in Pakistan, but the way the passage of time it can become viable. But gradually they have our major problem is the capacity payment or take or pay problem.
Okay.
If our industry shifts over to alternative sources of energy, which solar energy is very much possible in Punjab and wind energy is very much possible in Sindh, and certain other such as waste he is capturing or his storage or alternative boilers, alternative technology or environment friendly technology, less energy consuming technologies. This is how they can conserve energy.
Yeah.
And usually most of the industrial sector goes for energy audit. While going through energy audit, what they get, I mean energy audit or audit experts tell them where, when, how much energy to use, which appliances, which operative system to use, which not to use. This is how can they reduce their energy demand, they can reduce their energy tariffs and they can increase their production capacity.
Sir, very quickly, because we are really short on time, I would want your analysis on how can the agriculture sector cater to the more renewable transition towards the energy, while at the same time making sure the prices remain low, because agriculture is a huge part of our economy.
Yes, we have seen that most of our farmers now gradually shifting their tube well to solar energy.
Yes.
But at the same time they are yes, I mean they are wasting abundant water because the tube well is operating 24 hours. So they need to be careful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much,
Amjad
Amjad, for being with us.
Thank you
For
so much,
everybody's
sir.
out there, ladies and gentlemen, we need to head out towards a short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned. And obviously, you know, as we were talking about, you know, the climate change, I think what we really need to talk about is the physiological change that we experience in our human bodies. And why not, ladies and gentlemen, since you all know that it's Pinktober, October is actually kind of referred to as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And throughout the month, we make sure that, there's a lot of awareness which is being spread. While we're at it, I'm just going to state the facts and figures as well, which is obviously taken from World Health Organization. 2.3 million people every year are diagnosed with breast cancer, and 70% of the population is from the developing countries. Unfortunately, it is actually, ladies and gentlemen, amongst not just women only, but even men fall prey to breast cancer. So here we are. There are three main pillars that we would love to talk about today, and that's early detection, timely diagnosis, and breast cancer management. And to talk about this, we're very lucky that we've actually been joined by somebody who actually truly deserves to actually speak about this very menace which actually still exists. Haja, why don't you do the honors?
Right. So we are very honored that we have been joined by someone who is an oncoplastic and reconstructive breast surgeon. She happens to be Dr. Arifa Manzoor. Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for coming to our show. So Dr. Arifa, now let's unroll our conversation. It's Pinktober. There has been a lot of conversation when we talk about awareness regarding the breast cancer. What are some of the new conversations you think we need to have when we talk about breast cancer awareness? What do we need to talk about it? As an expert, please talk about it.
Let's start with the concept of breast cancer awareness.
Yep.
This idea was floated in 1985, and Breast Cancer Awareness Month was started as a one-week initiative where the purpose was to create awareness among the population regarding the disease, to taboos. There existed, patients were like shy to come to the doctors, and it spread over a month eventually. Now Pink October is celebrated as a whole month to create awareness about the disease, about its early detection, and then about the treatment as well.
So let's sort the the early detection bit as well. So for example, if I'm at home, because I do remember that how my nephew actually went to school in England, and he said to me once that Bhai Mamu, that whenever we actually used to go to school, our teachers would always tell us that whenever you're taking a shower and while you're applying soap, you need to check whether there's any unusual thing that you can actually figure out. And that's how they were educated. Now imagine that over here, unfortunately, we have never spoken about these issues. I would certainly want to pay rich tribute to this gentleman, Mr. Aftab, who's actually advocated quite a lot for breast cancer as well. How do you think that me at home, while I'm just at home, if I do feel any anomaly, how do you think that I can actually kind of check whether if something's wrong with me or not?
Okay, breast self-examination is a topic which we teach to our patients as well.
But then it's too late now because they're patients already.
Actually, the thing is, unfortunately, in third world countries, only 70% patients present with locally advanced or metastatic disease. So breast health initiative of the WHO is also focusing that in the developed and less developed, in the less developed countries, the 60% of the patient should be, diagnosed at stage 1 or 2, because the prognosis, the treatment, and the outcomes, they all improve when the patient is diagnosed at an earlier stage. Early detection saves lives. Is the logo of kind of this initiative as well. But self-examination should be encouraged in all women, especially women over the age of 20. They should be taught, and they should be looking out for any lumps, any skin changes, any nipple discharges, or anything abnormal. The purpose of breast self-examination only is to detect any change, and then they can come to their clinician.
Are there any other symptoms as well? For example, weight loss. There are
Weight
other
loss
issues associated with it.
The pain and the weight loss. There are certain cancers who present with pain and the weight loss.
Right.
Unfortunately, I want to convey to this forum as well. It's a very frequent presentation that the patients, when I talk to them, why have you come so late? And they are always like, there was no pain. There was no fever, there was no weight loss, we were perfectly healthy, there was just a lump, and we have been ignoring it. The lump keeps on increasing in size, and eventually it spreads to the other parts of the body, and patient comes to us with a metastatic disease, and it becomes, saving breast is out of the picture at that time, and saving even the life is not possible. So these things are not important in breast cancer. The skin changes, the nipple changes, discharges, abnormal discharges, or feeling of any lump, these are the symptoms that the patient, a lay person, should be looking out for. And every month, and while examining during the shower is a good idea,
Yep.
but you have to come to the concerned people, the trained people for proper
And
examination.
obviously, we cannot ignore the fact that we need to be vigilant when we are looking after our body, because obviously it is the amanat of Allah. So now, Dr. Saiba, now let's move on to the treatment, right? So I was doing my research and I came to know that there's a targeted cancer therapy going on, right? And there's this immunotherapy which won the Nobel Prize in 2018. So please
Okay.
explain to us the prognosis.
Listen, these things are fancy treatments.
Right.
The WHO initiative, which is focusing on early detection, means surgery is an integral part.
Yeah.
And breast cancer treatment involves multimodality management. We have to do, surgery, and then there can be hormonal therapy or chemotherapy
Right.
or radiation therapy. And in resistant cases, in patients who are not responding to the routine chemotherapies, immunotherapy is a good advancement to address the particular type of cancer. Every breast cancer is different. You need a tailor-made management.
Yeah.
You have to design, with the help of concerned people, multidisciplinary management, a specialized program for that particular patient.
Right.
One size does not fit all. Here.
Right, and Dr. Saiba, I do remember, so there are lots of stigmas that are attached to the breast cancer, right? And even speaking the name breast in itself had implied, because women's sexuality is something which is in Asian society is considered to be a very private sort of a topic, right? And a lot of people don't talk about it. So if anyone is experiencing any sort of changes which is going on inside their body, and particularly when we talk about the breast cancer, so I mean, because of that stigma and because of that particular notion of the honor, a lot of people don't go to the doctors for the diagnosis.
Well,
do you think the conversations have changed, because we are having a
Yes,
program on it?
Listen, the awareness month has served its purpose to a large extent in our
Right,
country as
right,
well.
right.
In my training, when I was qualifying as a general surgeon, I never saw a single breast being saved. People used to come with big tumors, the latest surgical techniques were not available, mastectomy was the answer to treatment of every breast
Right.
cancer. Now with all these awareness programs, initiatives being going on in our country as well, people are coming to us with at early stages as well. And I've been going to awareness sessions, and I've seen a lot of interest among the male attendants, male participants as well, because and we focus on creating awareness amongst everyone,
Right.
males and females.
Right.
And I don't know whether you know or not, the third week of October is celebrated as the male breast cancer
Out
awareness
of
month.
8, I believe that out of 8, according to World Health Organization, one patient is actually a male person as well. And in addition to this,
1 to 2%.
yeah,
of
and in addition to this, I think what we really need to kind of address here is that if we are to kind of look at the root cause, imagine that 70% of the cases actually come from developing countries. So there must be something wrong with our diet, with our habits, that we really need to kind of change.
Actually, no. Pakistan is leading, in the new incidence rates in Asia.
Diabetes mein hum
Europe
number
is-
1 hai. Unfortunately, there was this other illness that we were talking about the other day. We were at number 4, number 5. Now here comes breast cancer. So imagine that
No.
there's something
No,
that
no,
we're
no,
doing
no.
wrong.
No. Breast cancer is the leading cause of new cancer incidence all over the world now.
Okay.
And it has surpassed the lung cancers and colorectal cancers. So in Europe as well, it is a very high incidence. It is
Okay.
1 in 8. In Asia, it was 1 in 9.
Alright.
But unfortunately, in Asia, Pakistan has the highest incidence other than Israel. So there must be something with our lifestyles, with our diet. And I would also like to add,
And what can that be? So that's exactly what the question is.
unfortunately, in women, the only two risk factors are female gender
Okay.
and increasing age.
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, what we can do is healthy
But
lifestyle,
Dr. Saiba, there is this
normal
notion-
weight.
Yes, there's this notion, because Shahzad has highlighted that, and I think it is very pertinent to mention in this conversation, is that there is this notion that women who are not breastfeeding their kids, they're more prone to develop this cancer. Is it a true notion? Is it a myth that needs to be mystified?
We have to go very deep
Sure.
then,
Okay, sure.
because yes, these are all the risk factors which are taught.
Right.
Okay, but
Taught
the
as in?
taught as a subject, told to the patients that
Right.
you have to do this and that. They're all relative risk factors.
Okay.
You do not have a control over your pregnancies, your lactation, and all the other things. But the actual thing is that there are patients who have breastfed maybe 6 or 8 children, and even they end up getting
Breast
breast cancer.
Right.
So we should focus on the things where we can, improve, like keeping a normal weight,
Right.
having a good diet, lifestyle changes, the things
And,
that we
and
can
while
focus on.
focusing at it, Dr. Saiba, I think
Right.
this question which Haja asked is pertinent because of the fact that imagine that we really need to kind of speak about, or if we have that data, that the prevalence of breast cancer in women who are breastfeeding and women who are not breastfeeding will actually kind of give us a figure that, okay, probably breastfeeding is better, to avoid yourself from getting breast cancers as well. Do you think that we have such statistics, we had such data over here?
No,
Does your hospital maintain
we are
data?
lacking in data.
Okay.
A lot. We need to establish proper breast cancer registries. The data from our country is, lacking even in the new incidence, prevalence. So we do not have any such data from our country.
And
at the moment.
do we have the most advanced treatments available in our country?
Listen, the thing is that there are certain centers
Okay.
who have established, the proper guidelines and under one roof setups. We basically have to go a long way
Okay.
to establish breast cancer services. But to the best of our capacities, we are providing the standardized treatments for the betterment of the patient. So it is not like that we do not have treatments, we have treatment, but
Okay.
under one roof setups need to be established.
And I think the state is also really proactively working towards eliminating the menace of breast cancer, and we have seen a lot of free mobile treatment centers where they can actually go to the rural areas and they can get their the diagnosis, and where they can even get the treatment. So thank you so much, Dr. Saiba, for coming to our show, for shedding awareness on the breast cancer, and we are celebrating the Pinktober in order to raise the awareness regarding the breast cancer. And after a short break, we will come back and we have an interesting discussion lined up. Don't go anywhere. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back, and today we are going to talk about a topic which is very pertinent to our society, and particularly in the 21st century, because this is the form of the oppression that a lot of Muslims face in their communities, and it is one of the unaddressed form of the oppression, and we need to diagnose the nuances of this conversation. So I'm talking about the Islamophobia. How can we dissect this concept of the racism, of the oppression of the Islamophobia, and particularly we would also like to explore and go deeper into how technology is also aiding the Islamophobic discourses that we see pertinently in the wake of this entire crisis that is happening, unfolding in the Middle East. So to talk about the Islamophobia, dissecting this concept of that, we are very glad that we have been joined by Salman Farooq Saab. He happens to be a religious commentator. Assalamu alaikum, Salman, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you for having me. Walaikum assalam.
Wonderful to have you over here. And
Thank you.
let's get started with how, I certainly have forgotten the name whether who said that, but they said that Muslims are the new black, number one. Then, we have heard the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and we have seen how, obviously we do know for a fact that it's a form of oppression, and unfortunately they have seeped it into the Muslim community as well, where we are referred to as Islamophobia majority of the times, with whatever comes to the context. Now, what's your take on this, first of all, your understanding, and how do you think that our viewers need to understand that this is a way that we can get out of it? First of all, let's go.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And you have, basically you have encapsulated the whole concept. You two both have basically done that already. Because the idea of racism that you talked about
And oppression, yeah.
and oppression is the foundation stone of Islamophobia. And then you have talked about Muslims being the new black.
Yeah.
Basically, this is what encapsulates the whole idea of Islamophobia. Before I start to unfold or unpack the,
Sure.
the basic concept, I would like to say that where are we making the mistakes?
Sure.
I don't agree with the term Islamophobia, because if you look at the etymology of this term, the etymology is very interesting. Devil lies in details. so we don't need to go in that much detail to know this devil.
Sure.
The basic term Islamophobia denotes the irrational fear of Islam or Muslims or the institutions. So these are three elements.
Yep.
Now, the word is irrational fear. Who has coined this term? The West has coined this
Yep.
term. So it's a Western problem, not an Islamic problem.
True.
Just like Crusades was the creation of the West, not the Muslims
True.
or the Muslim world, not the East basically.
True.
Because it's not the fight between religion and non-religion. It's always been a fight between East and the West. We have to keep this in mind. It's not been.
I mean, if you go into the nuances, yes, at the end of the day, it is the religion, because if you see the foreign policies of the Western powers, they are highly guided by the eschatological beliefs. I mean, what is happening here? Why is there unrelented support for the Israel, despite the fact it is supporting a genocide out there? And our Prime Minister made it very clear at United Nations. So yes, religion is the heart of it. But because of the shortage of the time, Salman Sahab, I would like to go and explore how Islamophobic elements are supported by the technological developments. I mean, do you think the power centers, they are, grappled by, this diffusion of power to the ordinary people out there, and then they're shadow banning the content, and specifically the content that is pro-Islamic, or pro-Muslims is being like degraded in the favor of like more liberal order.
Yep.
So how do you explore that, and how can we combat that racism that technology is aiding?
And our mistakes as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So our mistake is, again, you have encapsulated the whole idea yourself.
I think we should. We need to take a seat back, and I think we'll allow you to please share.
No,
that.
no, no.
Yeah.
That makes the task very
Yeah.
easy for me, obviously. These are cues for me as well.
Yeah.
Well, of course, the genocide is happening in Palestine, but when was the term genocide introduced first? When was the first time it was coined? After the First World War.
All right.
That was the first time, and it was not genocide when 200 million people were killed in India by the UK imperialism. Neither was it coined when the slaves were transported and mass murder happened because of the blacks that you
Yep.
talked about.
Yep.
So this is a recurring theme, whether it was Spanish Inquisition, whether it was slave society that was created by the slave society or slave economy that was created, and then slaves were exported or imported to the US and the UK, to the Western world. So basically, it has a religious connotation, but it is not a religious problem as such,
Because
because
it's designed around that.
yes, it was designed around that. The basic theme is not the cultural norms. The cultural norms are there, but they are only the undertones, the undercurrents. The main theme and the main idea is the financial and the capitalistic system.
So is that what the West wants to achieve? By oppressing, by creating immense pressure that financially any nation certainly couldn't rise. Probably there's no competition for them. And if they can do it so well, why can't we coin a term? And why can't we do it?
So you're talking about
Yes, I'm talking about, for example, if the West has created this term or coined this term Islamophobia, why can't we come up with our own term Jewphobia? Let's do that too as well. I mean, what's Israel doing? Do you think
Yeah.
it's the media that needs to play a role in it?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that up again. You see, why not use the terms that are already there?
Okay.
Why not call it racism?
Yeah.
It is already there. The blacks have been fighting against racism for more than 250 years.
But that, I mean, if you just coin the term racism and if you do not highlight Islamophobia, that means you're generalizing the term,
Yeah.
right? When you're
Yeah.
mentioning Islamophobia, that means a particular community suffers oppression
Yeah.
because of their religion, right? So I do feel that it's important to label it in a more better context. So if you address a problem, then the solution can be presented in the
Yes.
first place,
Yes.
right? So it doesn't matter if the genocide when has been coined or if the Islamophobia when it has been coined, but what's important is how can we combat it, that too when technology is aiding it, right?
Yes. Okay. So when you coin your own term, you are basically delineating yourself from the mainstream struggle as well. So you are basically distancing yourself, and you are forming your own group, and you are saying, "See, we are also being oppressed." No, don't say that. We have to
Because
say,
we are.
Yeah, we are.
But
we are
when we
not.
say that, I think we fall more prey to it. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, if people are
Yeah.
getting killed in Palestine, right? So when they are being killed Palestine, we will say that we are being
True,
oppressed,
true,
right?
true.
So you need to call a spade when it's a spade out there.
There is one whole nation in the entire human history which has no spokesperson. You know which nation is that?
Got
That
it.
was the entire population of the North and South America. those have been wiped out of the face of the earth. Now, if they start creating resistance force and resistance group on the basis of their own ethnic minority basis, they can't have much force around themselves, can they? There is a human struggle that has a history of 250 years against the imperialist power within the American and the Western society that has been acknowledged to be a source of not only brutal oppression, but has fighting against the brutal oppression. That struggle knows the pros and cons. It has produced great fabulous leaders as well, and especially if Muslims are coining a term which suits them, they are looking back toward Muslim societies and the Muslim countries who cannot support them, can they?
True.
They can't be supported. And you're talking about raising the a very fine question about the political people supporting this genocide in Palestine, and all the media is being supportive of this concept as well. So that's true as well. Look at the rhetoric that was used by Mr. Trump 5 years ago when he was running for the president of. He said, and these are his words, and I looked at it when I was about to come here, and he said, 1.6 billion Muslim, most of them hate us. Look at this rhetoric. So what you are saying is, what they are saying is Muslim hate us, and what we are saying is, please do not hate us. That's what we are not supposed to do. What we are supposed to do is, you have been doing this for the past 1,000 years. You have been doing it in form of, okay, let me ask you a question now.
Sure.
If you allow me.
Sure.
Is there a term for Islamophobia in Urdu language?
No.
You don't
No.
No.
Is there a term for crusades in Urdu language?
Yes. Salebi Jange.
It's a translation, it's not a term.
Yeah.
No, it's a term. It's a term. Of course, it's a term.
It's a translation. Again, I mean.
No, it was not translation. It was a term that
Okay.
was coined, and that happened way back in 10,000 something, and then 1100 something.
Okay, so Urdu was not there when crusades happened.
right.
Urdu was not there when
So
crusades happened.
Urdu is a collection of different languages, right?
So
Persian,
Arabic was there.
Yeah.
Arabic was there.
Yes.
I cannot think of one word which is against the crusades, because in the Muslim mind it was not a religious battle anywhere, anyhow it was not a religious battle.
Well, that's your personal opinion, and there are a
Yeah,
lot of
it was
people
never
who
was.
will refute that.
This crusades
It was always a
happened.
religious battle
Yeah,
there,
but,
right?
but coming
Yeah.
coming back to the topic now, let's come to a point where we certainly would want to kind of get rid of this very notion which is associated with the entire Muslim Ummah. What ways do you think that we can actually channel and make sure that we get rid of this very menace that the West actually applies on it, and it certainly does not exist within our own community as Muslims?
First, we have to be introspective about it.
Yep.
First, we have to understand what this term means exactly. Who coined it? Why are we blindly following it? Why are we taking it up as if it's our own? Secondly, what we have to do is we have to understand the cultural specifics of the places where the people are living and what kind of difficulties they are facing as well. Okay, so if I move to the US and I want to
And
for
if they
them,
see this interview of yours, that will be trouble for you.
probably, who knows? But I think they like free speech. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So what happens is, if someone moves to the US, I move to the US, I want to have my own identity preserved as well. As a Muslim, I want to keep a beard, I want to be in an attire in a specific form and in a specific way. I need to understand one thing as well, which is that in their minds, there has to be, to be an American, I have to adopt the American values.
Yep.
To be a Western, I have to adopt the Western values.
True.
So the Muslims have to have this conversation going on amongst themselves as well. Living there, you cannot propagate yourselves as the whole community, as a Muslim community, and cannot have your political beliefs on the basis of being Muslims. You have to fight. If you are living in the US, you have to adopt the nationality. You have to start to be having a debate amongst yourselves in which you want to create your identity. Okay, we know that in Muslim communities in the US, in the Muslim communities in the, okay, last words. In the Muslim communities in the US, there are fewer crimes than the whole of the US. There are fewer drug users in the whole of the US. So the communities are thriving. They are contributing positively towards the US. But on the street level, where there is irrational fear, because they declare themselves to have irrational fear. So whoever is committing Islamophobia is not
Thank you so
right-minded
much.
person.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
so
saying
much.
that,
Thank
and
you so
setting
much.
the precedence for all of those people who are out there. Imagine that in Muslim communities, as mentioned by you as well, there's lesser crime, there's lesser drug abuse, there's less of everything. So I think it's all about, the fear of unknown for people who are out there who certainly does not know the values that we carry in our religion, alhamdulillah, as Muslims. Shukr, alhamdulillah, we thankful to Allah Almighty that we were born Muslims.
On the closing note, and I would also like to say that as a ummah, as a Muslim, we need to come out from that inferiority complex that ummah has been vanquished, the caliphate has been abolished, I think, and we need to make our presence felt because this is the need of the hour. With that, we will thank our worthy guest for coming here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And we will wrap up our segment and say you goodbye, Allah Hafiz, and until next time.
Good morning.
Good morning.